Now we're going to think a bit about area meetings. Are many area meetings looking at doing things differently?
As far as I can tell, around the country, about a third of our area meetings are actively considering this year how they're going to organise things.
Where could they start?
I think I've got four really important questions. The most important question, though, is what is the area meeting for? And most times the answer is coming back as a combination of decision making and community. I had somebody in a session a few weeks ago say, how can we make area meeting an occasion that people actually want to come to? So I think that's a really good question. Another one, maybe a bit more challenging, is how much is this the discernment of the whole area meeting if the only people who can attend are those who can spare 6 hours on a Sunday, if you include the travel times, or 9 or 10 hours on a Saturday, including the travel, 8 or 9 times a year? Whose discernment is it? And then I think the fourth question relates to that, is about, is it inclusive?
What variations are being tried or considered?
I think groups who are thinking about this tend to come up with how can we combine worship and community and concerns and appointments and decisions, learning, and most importantly, food. That there are quite a few area meetings that are reducing the frequency from the perhaps more traditional pattern of 8 or 9 times a year down to maybe 5 or 6 times in a year. And some of those would have a significant element of community building or learning. Some are going for maybe, say, 5 area meetings for business and 2 for learning. There's one that's recently decided to experiment with 3 times in the year when they have whole day of the more meaty, more business style approach, and 3 that are really focused on learning and community building, with a bit of urgent business at the end if they have to. Some area meetings have tried to do that package all together, so they meet for worship, then might have a speaker, and then have a lunch and a social time, and then perhaps an activity or a workshop, and then some business. So they're putting all of those together to make it a much more rounded package. And I hear quite a few area meetings saying, we are really trying to get our business done in an hour and a half, or 2 hours, or sometimes if they've really cut down the frequency, 2.5 hours. And that, having those kind of aims, gives you a sense of what you might need to adjust to try and make that possible. And the other theme that keeps coming up in discussions is about inclusivity, about thinking about where the location is, what the timing is, timing in the day or the days of the week, maybe moving it around a bit, so not always the same pattern every meeting. Thinking about the frequency and all age. We are an all age community, and we're not just thinking there about children, we're also thinking about young adults, middle-aged adults, as well as older adults.
Any ideas to share?
Several area meetings recently have said we are going to hold most of our area meetings at a central transport hub, so that most of our people can find it easy to get to within a reasonable amount of time, rather than spending their main focus on rotating around between every single meeting in the area meeting. There's no rule that says you have to do that. It may work more effectively for you to go to a central place, even if you have to make some special transport arrangements for some people. One area meeting is, and has for many years, held some of its meetings as a telephone conference. So a conference call with everybody on the phone. And they have managed to find a way to make that work in a worshipful sense, to make decisions together when they can't travel the distances they would need to. Another area meeting made the decision to spend £4,000 on subsidising their residential event. And it had a very successful time. 50 people came, made the event really work really well, and there's an example of them investing the area meetings money in the people, not just in the buildings. You know how it's quite easy for us to make decisions about property matters for, say, £4,000, but sometimes it's really hard for us to dare to spend that money on the people in the area meeting. And finally, learning events that can be combined, perhaps not just for a single area meeting, perhaps with another one. So if you're going to the effort of arranging either a speaker or a workshop or something you've constructed, maybe you could combine two area meetings to learn about the same things at the same time. And some area meetings do that in clusters of their local meetings. So they might, if they're a large area meeting, they might have some of those events for 4 or 5 or 3 meetings together.
And what about eldership?
Several meetings I've been talking with have said it's really important to clarify the role of elders in relation to the area meeting in session, so that it doesn't rest on the shoulders of the clerk to maintain the discipline of the group of those who are worshipping together. And sometimes they've taken quite clear steps to explain to people what the discipline is, and that this is the style of the meeting, and this is why. And also to encourage elders to play the role in area meeting that they're asked to play. One I know puts out a sheet with the discipline and some examples on all the seats in the area meeting, and that they found that encourages people to use the Quaker discipline really well.
What about agenda setting?
Here's a few questions you might ask. Does this item really need the discernment of the area meeting? Could some preparation beforehand speed this item through to a useful and good decision point? Are there some items, perhaps more routine items, that don't need a discussion in the area meeting, and perhaps there could be a draft minute that might be circulated in advance or presented in the meeting for agreement, the so-called consent agenda approach, which can save quite a bit of protracted time on items that actually don't need a large amount of discernment. There's been quite a bit of discussion amongst area meeting clerks recently about how do they handle reports, whether they are sent out in advance and quite widely, whether they're spoken to or not at the meeting itself, or whether perhaps some are spoken to more than others, and others might be very brief or not taken with a spoken contribution at all. So how much is this report really fundamental for people to talk about in the area meeting session? Another question that people have been, I think, wisely focusing on is the area meeting in session duplicating the work that now rests with trustees? And are our items going back and forth between trustees and area meeting and back again, when perhaps if they went in directly into one or other was handled more appropriately, they could big decisions then might come to the area meeting for a decision, but a lot of the work could have been done by the trustees. So being clear which type of decisions is appropriate for area meeting, which type appropriate for trustees to make, can really make things work more smoothly and save considerable amount of duplication. And finally on this, being prepared to joyfully leave some topics for other people to consider is all right, it's allowed.
Does everything have to be done either by the clerk alone or the area meeting in session?
I don't think it does, and quite a lot of meetings now have worked out ways of using some form of preparation group so that things don't only rest with the clerk, or don't only have to come relatively unprocessed into the area meeting in session. So it might be a preparation group, it might be a arrangements committee, it might be a committee of clerks. And some have a group that's established where some key role holders come, and it's actually open to any member or attendant to come to the meeting, so it's not a closed discussion. But there's a core of people who will help work through what preparation is needed, what business is needed. And that can really help to shorten the main area meeting for business, and also enable there to be a lower frequency of meetings, because something is able to handle things in between whiles. I think it's also important to be clear how the area meeting as a body will have urgent decisions made when that's necessary. So sometimes using a clear delegation to say, these kinds of issues we are prepared for this group to make on our behalf, if it's urgent, if it can't wait for the next meeting, can allow people to dare to have a longer interval between the main area meetings to make more of those occasions when they do arise. And I think that really takes me back to that question at the beginning, which is, what is the area meeting for, and how can we make it an occasion that people really want to come to, that will cover things that are about spiritual matters, about community, about learning, as well as decisions.